Lady Cordelia, I may have discovered where Paganini went wrong.
Indeed? I knew it. Show me. I must know his wicked folly.
The etude requires a very unorthodox fingering. It's quite bizarre, most eccentric. It violates every convention a master like yourself could be expected to observe.
Show it, show it.
May I?
The transcriptor is a torturer and an idiot. I told Lawton at least a dozen times it had to be wrong. I'd like to wring his neck. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, for pointing out the error of his ways.
Might you now tell me, my lady, why Lord Lawton has been reluctant to speak with me?
Caution, Mr. Holmes. Simple prudence. Lord Lawton is on a very short tether. The peccadilloes, financial encumbrances, and legal obligations of his past meet me everywhere in town. He must avoid untoward entanglements of any sort or imperil his marriage prospects. He may regard you as a threat to his expectations.
But I bear him no ill will. I intend him no harm.
I dare say. But the road to oblivion is paved with good intentions. You are trouble incarnate, Mr. Holmes. Troubles employ you. They nurture you. And I'll wager you almost always leave trouble in your wake. Now, I must practice. You can see yourselves out.
What can you tell me about Lord Lawton's man, Jenkins?
He's too forward by half, for starters. Lord Lawton allows him to play billiards, for heaven's sake. A prescription for encouraging a servant to get above himself.
Perhaps they enjoy the competition.
Nonsense. It's an unhealthy passion. I've told Jenkins that his behaviour is unseemly. He continues to spite me. When we combine households, he'll be looking for work, sans references.
Something you'd like to hear, Watson?
Perhaps one of your own compositions, Holmes. But mind you do justice to the difficult sections, if you take my meaning.
Perfectly apt and instantly grasped, Doctor. This looks like an engagement photo. I didn't see one at Lawton's.
I expect he has one, if only to display when she comes around.
We may not have exhausted his collection. Lady Lockridge, who is Mr. Hargrove?
Discovered a secret, have you? I suppose you've earned it. Edward Hargrove, Mount Street, is the demi-monde's current darling. Dubious clientele. Persistent, disagreeable rumours. But Lawton insisted. And he did a good job. Still, a woman of my standing and position can't afford to be associated with such a person. He's not unimpeachably respectable.
Hello, Charles. We're not interrupting.
Just finishing up, Sherlock. How's your brother? Dreadful accident. Coming round, is he?
Out of immediate danger, thank you. You remember my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson?
Of course. Hello, Doctor. Make yourselves comfortable in the loosest meaning of the word. I'll be with you in a moment.
I'm trying to identify a man, Charles. Might I explore your memory?
You can try. I assume your inquiry is confidential?
Acute as ever. The man figures somehow in the murder of a civil servant. Secrets of state are at risk.
What does he look like?
I've never seen him, but one who did says he's thickly built, fair, with a small discoloration on his bearded face, perhaps a birthmark. He was wearing a dark slouch hat and cape, and he speaks German.
Language is not decisive. He could be German, Austrian, Prussian, Hungarian, Polish, even Russian. Anything else?
Regrettably, no. The witness' vantage point and the lack of light made expression and gait unremarkable. He couldn't even guess at his age.
No one springs to mind, Sherlock. Or rather, 10 men do, but are they in England? Is he a criminal, a secret agent, a diplomat? With so little to differentiate them, I'm useless, I'm afraid.
With such meagre details, my hopes were not high.
Give me particulars, man, then maybe I can help. Or if not me, someone I know.
Do you still have associates whom you trust at the Home Office?
Ah, you suspect the involvement of a foreign power, don't you? Yes, I was thinking along those lines myself. Listen, when you discover the man's identity, I can introduce you to someone who might help.
Thank you, Charles.
A pleasure to see you, Sherlock. You're always onto something intriguing.
Have you had more thoughts about my subject, Charles?
I rather expected a mugshot for reference. By the way, are you certain he wears a beard?
According to my source. Have you heard anything about terrorist involvement in the Diogenes explosion?
Not a whisper. It was an accident, certainly, wasn't it?
To say I hope so would be as unseemly as it would be insincere. But if you've heard nothing, let it be. Is this profusion of papers really necessary? Place is a fire hazard.
Impossible to have too many papers.
Watson is always at me to cut down on my consumption.
One should never be without a fresh newspaper. No item is more serviceable. Absorbs grease from fish and chips, wraps garbage or lines a threadbare coat. Use it as a towel, a fan, a sunshade, an umbrella, a dustpan, a carpet, and if worse comes to worse, heaven forfend, you can always read it. Help yourself to the Telegraph. It's hot off the press.
Your argument is exhausting, if not compelling. You've assembled a remarkable group of character portraits.
They are open, if slightly smeared, windows onto our capricious times.
I keep a collection for similar purposes, mostly criminal subjects.
And the small posters are my rogues exhibit, villains all.
The portrait of Kropotkin is revealing.
Admirable man. His major weakness is prophesying war every next fortnight.
Even anarchists need a hobby, I suppose. This small portrait is distinctive. Who is it? Or more to the point, what is it?
Well observed. That was and may well be Louis Baptiste Gautier, the terrorist absconded from the Paris cells without a trace in 1857.
Very interesting. An artist has introduced age to the image of the younger man's face, so he might be recognized if he reappeared.
Exactly. My artist drew on the old picture and then photographed his work.
He's a clever craftsman, your artist. Who is he?
Nigel Hemmings, illustrator and portrait artist by training. First rate. No one would buy his painting, so he took up photography.
The posters are very well drawn. Same artist?
Yes, Hemmings says the American police call them mug shots.
Peculiar expression. Some of these must be extrapolations from old photos, adding beards and wrinkles and so on.
Yes, and others are subjects I've seen and described. With a first-person account, he can age a man, get his expression right, that sort of thing.
Scotland Yard could benefit from his skill.
You're right, of course, but would they? I heard Lestrade say Bertillon's system of criminal identification was a bunch of foreign nonsense. He takes so badly to new methods.
Don't I know it? Might I have young Hemmings' address?
He's a staff photographer for the Standard.
I would prefer a less public audience.
Oh, yes, of course. You can often find him in his garret at 14 Montague Street, just across from the British Museum.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Holmes. I've heard of you. I'm just drawing this film. With you in Alphamo.
I saw your work at Friedman's. It's exceptional. Would you make a mug shot of someone for me?
Simple as pie. Let's start with a facial shape. Round, oblong, heart-shaped. You get the idea.
I've actually never seen the subject, just heard him described.
Not enough, Mr. Holmes. Without a witness, I can't do better than a caricature. You can't keep me to rights, you see. Tell me the nose is too wide and such like. I'm sorry.